begin to talk about our colors just a little bit that we're going to use for our painting, you'll notice that you have an inspiration picture for your boat. Now the inspiration picture has some ideas on it that are going to be really good for us to look at and use, but it is only an inspiration, okay? Your picture does not have to be a carbon copy of this, because if it was, you could just purchase this one, or you could print out a new one. This is only an inspiration for your boat, and we want you to feel very free into being able just to paint it the way you want to. It does not have to look like this when you finish. It'd probably be better if it didn't. No, we want this to be your artwork, okay? And no one else's. Now, as we begin to talk about the procedure that we're going to use, we're actually going to start with the background first. The background is all the space that we're going to call the sky area from here to the horizon line. After you get the horizon line and you go down to the water, we'll paint that next. And then we'll come on up to the foreground and we'll put the beach area in. And then after we get the beach area in, we'll come back and start on the biggest part of the boat. And then we'll add the details last. And that way it keeps you from having to draw in and around things. We are going to paint big and fun and fast. And this is a class where you finish in 2 hours. If you start working and feel like, oh, she's going too fast, just let your adrenaline pump just a little bit, and that'll keep you going. Because if you overthink everything, like how do I do this, how do I do that, then you're not going to be as creative as you could if you just let the painting happen. So don't worry about going fast. You'll be able to keep up, and at the end of 2 hours you'll be finished. If not, you can come back tomorrow or next week or anytime you want to and work on it. But anyway, just enjoy the painting. The first thing I want you to do is pick up the biggest brush you have, and I want you to dip it in water. Anytime you get ready to paint with any medium, you always need to use the medium to absorb in your brush first.
Could you try again?
If it's not, it's like you're just taking sandpaper and just rubbing it on your canvas, like you're just rubbing your bristles raw. So we don't want you to do that. So just submerge it in water, and then you can literally take it and just squeegee it out a little bit like that, or you can just tap it on your paper towels and get, a little bit of the moisture off. So now that it's time for you to think about your colors, as I mentioned, you do have a dark blue and a light blue. And so I want you to look at your picture and feel the difference that the mood creates with having that blue sky and that very blue water. And so what we want to make sure is that as we start painting, that we get sort of a middle value of blue towards the top. As we go down, we're going to get lighter as we paint the clouds. And then look how dark blue. It's a bright blue. It's like a cobalt blue. It's very bright. And so we want to make sure we get that where the water is. And then you'll notice it changes from water that's very far away to water that's coming in and being closer to you. And that value changes, and it gets lighter as it goes from here to where the sand is. And then we've got an overlap of the sand coming right into the beach. So that's the way we're going to proceed with it, okay? So if I say light blue, it's the cerulean blue. And if I say the dark blue, it's the one that's really bright, but it's the darker one. Now, sometimes we'll actually mix the colors, and we're actually going to start with that because you know that white will make anything lighter. It will also make it duller. So we want to make this pretty dull in here because we want the dullness to come out against the brightness that comes in the water, okay? So what I want you to do first, if you will go in and just pick up a smidgen of paint on your brush just to get you started. Literally, you can just pick up some so that you can get an idea. Once you start mixing, you'll have a little better idea of how much paint you need. But I picked up enough literally that I can start making some blue. So that's what I want to start with. I want you to see what both colors look like. So take your brush and turn it and use just the corner of it and go in and pick out just a smidgen of paint. just enough so you have like that much on the tip of your brush, and you can see what that looks like, okay? This is the light blue. It doesn't matter which one you do first. Take your brush and just put it into the light blue like this and get a smidgen of it and lay it down beside the white. And then flip your brush to the other side and get a smidgen of the dark blue and put it over on the other side. See the difference between the light blue and the dark blue? No, you never have to take the paint off. I'll tell you if you need to wash. Yeah, always leave your paint on there. So now you have these two colors. Now, watch what happens if you mix that right into the white. See this light color that you get? That's real good for what we want for that first area where we're going to think about being clouds. But that's not where we're going. We're going to the medium part. So actually, now you know that you can take like 2 smidgens of both of the blues and mix those together. And you don't need much white at all on your brush to be able to paint that color. And that's the color that we're looking for. And the way to keep the beauty of those colors is to not mix them up all together. If you mix them up a little bit, don't worry about it. Now, every time you go over to pick up your paint, just pick up a different color. Because every time you go and move your brush across, you can blend, you can mix the colors. Now, also as you're blending, as soon as you get a little bit of the sky painted, you need to go back and put water on your brush like this, because I dipped it in the water. I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna lubricate my brush literally by just putting the water on it, and then I'm coming back. Now these strokes are very long, and they have a lot of paint on them. You pick up the paint and then you move it along. As soon as you paint a little bit, you have to get more paint. As you're moving towards the bottom, you're just adding a little bit more white in it so it'll look cloudy. Now, our clouds can be different than the clouds that you see on this picture. You don't even have to have a cloud that looks like, you know, a little cotton ball kind of cloud. You definitely don't have to have that. You can just use the white strokes like this to actually look cloudy as you begin to go to the horizon line. Now, once you get to that horizon line, now you can see I've avoided the place over here where we've got the boat for now. And so what I want to tell you that you can do now is literally you can go in with your brush and you can push the water across very slightly, and you can still see as you begin to move your brush. And I'm going to turn my canvas like this so that I can get the edge. But if you will literally just take your brush and brush it across, the paint will go in between the lines, the strings that you need it to go in between, but you don't cover up the drawing. That way you can keep it and make sure that you have exactly what you want. So the clouds you can just pull in as you want them to. If you like this to be more stormy, you can definitely have a big variety between the dark blues and the light blues. But if not, you can make it more subtle by just mixing it together a little bit more, okay? So that's pretty much the sky, and now it's time for us to move right on over to the water. Now remember we said that the water is going to be deeper and darker, so I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to go right into the dark blue. Now this is the ultramarine blue that's darker, and you can see I didn't wash my brush, I didn't take any white off of it, I didn't take any blue off of it. All I did was pick up the blue that is the ultramarine that's dark. And all I'm going to do with that is I can use the whole width of my brush to go across like this. And you notice that the white and the other blues come out a little bit. And that's important. You don't want it to be just like you're painting a wall color. You want this to be a painting and you want it to look like water. So you can use the toe of your brush like this to get an even line. And then you can also use the whole width of your brush if you were trying to paint across the whole area. Once again, I lighten up just a little bit when I get to where my lines are so that I can still see them. That's why we paint them with the paint markers, so that they stay on there and you can still see them up underneath the paint. Now, as we begin to get into the area where the water changes, where you have a line that shows you where there's deep water and then more shallow water, what we're going to do is start going back and adding the lighter color blue. So now you're going to the cerulean blue. I'm just dipping enough of the paint on my brush so that when I start spreading it out, I can see that it is the color that I want. As soon as I look at it, I know that it's too dark by itself. So that means immediately I just go into my white cup, add white right on my brush, and you can see how easy it is to get the paint lighter with one smidgen. That's when you take your brush and just dip the corner into it just a little bit. Now, we're not like painting in between the lines, and we're not being exact. You've got a big brush. We want you to just brush across. But remember, when we get to the lines, if you will just add a little bit more water on your brush and a little less paint, once you get up to where the boat is, then it's easy for all of the color to go where you want it to go, and it still doesn't cover up your drawing. Now, if you're a magnificent drawer and you want to just redraw it when you start painting, you can certainly do that, but some people don't care too much about drawing, so if you don't. Now, once you get to the boat over here, just use the toe of your brush instead of the width of your brush. Just use the toe of it like this, and you can just go and literally just push the water behind the boat, which is what you're trying to do. So don't worry about covering up any of these lines. They're dark enough that they're going to show. Remember, dip in the water, come back with a little lighter paint color with adding a little bit of white in it, and just move a broad stroke back and forth across. And you can see once again that you are going to have to go up underneath the sail, which is here, but then you can tell that the sand starts coming in, so you can get just about to that line and then you'll be ready for sand. So you don't have to lose the whole boat area, but you can certainly cover up most of it. With a little bit more of the texture that you might be interested in. And of course you can see on your palette there's a buff color, and the buff color you can actually put into this space like this, and that will be the look of having waves. You can also use white, which we're going to use in a minute, but it also creates the look of having like sand or the beach up underneath it. And so that'll be another color that we start pulling in just a minute. And you can certainly do it now if you're ready. But looking at your inspiration piece, you can tell that by the time we get halfway to where the beach is going to start, that's the color that we're going to pick up and start putting in anyway. But I don't want you to wash your brush. What I want you to do is just load your brush with the color that's taupe, that's actually that color. And literally you're just going to load your brush, and as soon as you start, as soon as you get through with the area that we're calling the water, we're going to get right into the beach. But it's okay if the tan color mixes in with the blue, because then it looks very natural. It depends on how much paint you're actually carrying on your brush, but see how many times I go back in to dip, back in to dip. I keep loading my brush with the sand color. And so one thing that can do is create texture in the sand because it makes it sort of glumpy-like, it makes it stand up. But you can see that texture needs to go all the way across and go up till you get to where the sail is that's rolled up right in the middle. So we want a little bit of the beach to have the water that mixes in this area. So that's why you don't even have to wash your brush when you get there. Just start picking up the peachy color, fleshy color, buff color. You can also pick up white to go in there with it. But like I said, you don't even have to wash your brush. Just go in, start adding that. If you want the beach to look a little more like sand piles, build up a little bit heavier, instead of using the width of your brush like this, use the toe of your brush and go across, and you'll make thinner lines like this, and then that will give you the look of having thinner or lines that are further back. If you get a line that's really open and wide, then it's going to look like it's further up. So use just the toe of your brush to be able to come in and go side to side to get that feel of the water coming up a little bit on the sand, and then the beach beginning to soak up most of the water, because that's what's going to happen. So you're going to play in there with that buff and white. You can use both of them interchangeably, really, to lighten the beach color. And it really depends on you thinking about what beach you want this to look like. If it's a more refined beach, you can tell that you can use more white. But if it's a beach like Tybee, it's probably more of the tan, buffy color. But just add as much white to it as you want. Don't worry if the sand looks like it has blue in it, because that's going to be important to make the water look like it is seeping through. So keep the tan going, and then you'll see you've got a place where the cast shadow is, and maybe where it's even sitting in water. And so that area we're going to catch right here. So I'm skipping that space, and I'm going down to the bottom, and I'm actually putting in more of the tan color at first. And you can see that that goes in and pretty much surrounds the area. Now, all the lines and things that you have drawn down below, we're going to use as lines that show depth in the sand and waves, or the place on the water where the water's actually going out and the water's just seeping in a little bit more. So all those things become important as you start filling in that space. Now, even if the sand color is still on your brush, you can go in and let's begin to put a little bit of the blue as water that's actually coming up underneath the boat, or a cast shadow, or both. So what we can do is we're going to take the same color that we used up here, which is the dark blue. This is our dark blue. I'm putting it in this space, and you can see it comes in and goes all the way across the canvas so that it shows that the boat is sitting probably right in the middle of it. Got washed up and then it just stayed there. The water stayed right there with the boat. And then you can notice that you also have a darkness that you need to have up underneath the boat too with blue. But that blue is a little darker, and as you notice, as you come up this way, the blue gets darker. So we're going to go in and we're going to pick up a smidgen of black. That means we're going to take just a little bit of black on the tip of our brush. We're going to put it in while we have the blue on there, and then that way we can go up underneath and get that shadow up under the boat, because the shadow under the boat is very important. So using just the toe of your brush, go in and draw basically a shadow line under the boat as you begin to sort of finish up with where you see the water is.
over that blue part and up under the boat one more time?
Yes, we will certainly review what we're working on now. This area that shows that there is water up underneath the boat is the dark blue color. And literally we're just gonna take our brush and come in, and we're using the same strokes that we've used throughout the painting. If you wanna go wider first, just to fill in the space, you can do that. Then if you turn that brush so that you're using just the toe of it, you can get a little bit more of an action feel of like the water's actually just moving just a little bit. If your water's really still, then you don't even have to worry about that. But literally you're gonna put the dark blue on there first. Then you're gonna pick up a little black, a smidgen of black on your brush, and you're gonna start right up underneath the boat with the black, even though it still has the blue on it. You're gonna come in, and it's a wiggly kind of S shape that goes right up underneath the boat to show that there's a cast shadow up underneath it. So then the shadow anchors the boat, so it's literally laying down on the beach, and it doesn't look like it's floating.
And that's what she said, take the line.
The black goes right up underneath this area,
All the way under?
all the way under.
Okay. Take the blue off the paintbrush?
No, ma'am, you don't have to take it off.
Okay.
No, ma'am. Just put the blue right into the black.
Okay. You're a very patient teacher.
But while you have that black and blue on your brush, if you'll go in and add a little bit of the buff color to lighten it up a little bit, that way we can make squiggly marks out here that show where the water was a little bit dried up or is now beginning to go right into the sand. That color is what is on your brush with a little bit more buff added to it, because we're getting back to the sand color. You can also add a dot of that brown in it if you like it to look brownish, but what we're doing is just we're breaking up the sand so it doesn't look so flat and even. We want it to look like it has mounds or holes or funky stuff, laying down in that space. So we don't want it to be too clean looking. We want it to have a little bit of a line with colors and or textures that come in. Just enough to give interest to the sand so it doesn't look flat. So, yeah, to do that, I went right in with the color that was on my brush. I added the buff to it. And then I added a dot of brown. I didn't wash it. I just went right to the brown, and the buff, and mixed that up. And then you get a brownish color, okay? So the brownish color is gonna allow you to play down there a little bit in the sand so that you can distress it or make it look like that the water is soaking up and just about gone, but not quite gone. Almost. So you can just sort of play around in the sand a little bit. And especially those of you who have painted a while, you can really take the opportunity now while people are still working on their water to go back, and any place that you want to add the buff color into your water here like that to make it look more buffy. In other words, like the water is getting a little bit more, what do you call those, white caps, like it's coming in on the top area. If you want more of those, you can certainly pick up the white paint or the buff, either one, and put that area really close to the bank if that's what you want it to look like. Now, I did have a couple of people ask about the thinness of the paint that you have here since you're using the water, and it can look thin now. It'll be real easy once you figure out in your mind in just a second, you're gonna go, oh, you know, all I have to do is paint that line and I know exactly where it is, so it's okay if I put more paint here because you know exactly where the line is. That just helps you keep up with what's going on, and we can add as much color, as much paint in there as you want to in a minute. But we're going to let that underpainting dry. We're going to let all that get stuck to the canvas. We're going to move on and start putting the color in the boat, and then we'll go back to clouds and water and beach paint again very soon. So let's switch just a minute and think about, if you'll look at the colors on your boat, you'll notice basically that the top color, the top half of the boat, is the same color that you have in your water that is really bright and dark far away, and really the same color that's coming right up underneath your boat where it's sitting in the water. So that's what we want to start with first, but I'd like for you to change and go get your pointed brush, your round brush, because that'll give you a little bit more control. So step one would be for you to take your brush and wash out it a little bit in the water first. And once you tap it dry, then you can just lay it over there and keep it, because you're going to use it again in a minute. But if you keep it wet for 10 or 15 minutes, it's just really not good for just soaking it in the water. So get a little bit of the paint out, wash it a little bit, and then dip your other round brush in the water. And it's okay if it's bluish water, because that's what we're going for. Don't worry about it. We don't have anything on here that's spick and span icy clean for sure. Everything is on the dark side if you think about the value of a color, especially where we're going to start right here with the boat. So if you've dipped this in water, just pat it dry a little bit, and then I literally want you to go and dip in your blue cup and get the dark blue on. Now this is the dark blue. And then I want you, before you do much with that, I want you to pick up some of the light blue at the same time. And they're just going to sort of alternate. We're going to weave them together literally as we begin to paint the boat. Now if you'll notice, there's a little streak and then there's other stripes on here. So basically to paint this, what you need to think about is, if you take your round brush and look at this very first top section right here, it is blue. So you're going to dip your brush in the water, you're going to dip it in the blue paint, the dark blue, then you're going to dip it into the light blue, and then dark blue and light blue. You're just going to alternate that until you get that first little painted area of the boat filled in. And then literally you're going to move over to the other side of the boat, because it looks just like that. It's blue on that side. And you're using the point of your brush to actually help you make a line that's straight-ish. Now this isn't a very detailed painting like a photographic painting. All you're doing is going in and you are painting the edges. You're using the toe of the brush just really to fill in the space. So once you fill in the very first wood panel on the boat, you're going to skip a panel, and then you're going to go down and you're going to paint another one up underneath it. As it goes further down, the blue gets lighter, so don't use the dark blue anymore. just keep picking up the lighter blue. And don't worry about those lines being there. They're there to show you how the boat rounds itself out. They round themselves out like this as you start moving. And so I want your brush stroke to follow the line as you paint like this. Follow the line. Pick up a little smidgen of that tan buffy color about the time you get in that very middle section. And just keep going with the blue until you get about halfway down and then stop. So what I'm actually doing is I'm using all three colors in the boat. I'm tapping in the color and I'm going in a direction that matches the lines that you have drawn. You're not going to paint the lines. You're not going to paint a board in, board by board. But literally you're just going to go in and with the light blue and with a little bit of the buff color in to lighten it up, or even white if you want it to go a little bit lighter, you're literally just going to paint about half the boat. The left side done, you're going to do the right side just like it on the boat. So I'm going back with the lighter blue. I'm putting a little bit of the lighter buff color in there. And then in that section, you can see they're actually all the way, almost like you're almost making like a triangle. It's going down to a point. But that last little section has a lot of the buff in it, and it doesn't have quite as much of the blue in it. If you look at your inspiration picture, you can see that up underneath this area, we have brown. And that is the next color. I didn't wash my brush. I didn't change it. I just went right into the brown. And you can see if you mix the colors like that, the brown and the blue make a dark brown. And so you can use it first to start your shaping. And then you can keep adding more and more of the brown until you get the color that you want it to be. If you have too much blue on there and you're not happy with it, just wash some of it off and then pick up some more brown and lay it on there. You're just building, it's like you're painting the boat, literally. You're just painting the boat with the brown color. Now that structure that's in the middle, we'll catch in a minute, but right now we want to make sure that the bottom half of the boat is brownish. And of course, we know that that buff color comes into play because it can certainly change the look. Okay, this is brown by itself, and watch, if I take the buff and put on there, see how all of a sudden it lightens it up? So that's a look that makes the boat look like it is almost old or antiqued, or it's been in the water for a while. That's why that's the reason that we're not washing out our brush very much. We're trying to keep everything in the pretty much the feel of the boat being out, of course, in the water and being distressed a little bit. I am going to pick up a little bit more of the tan color, and I'm coming over here on the other side of the boat and finishing up that corner. You started in with the dark blue at the top, and then you went light blue, and now you're doing the buff color on that point on the very end. So you can see the point right there. Now, since you have the buff and brown on your brush, will you go ahead inside the boat, like this is actually the inside of the boat, and put the buff color? And you can tell that this is the inside, and that means the sun's coming down from the top because this is light. And if you'll notice, if you begin to look at the sections as you see all of the lines that are coming out of the boat and the poles, that the tan goes all the way across, but the poles do overlap it. So if you don't want to overlap the poles, you can stop and go around them. But I just covered all the poles up with the tan, and then I'll go back with the dark color and make those show up in a minute. But you can paint around them if you want to, but basically use the taupe color. Now, while you have the taupe, go ahead and put your stripe on your boat with the taupe color. And that's the color that comes right in here. Now remember, that's just the inspiration piece. That's the color that we chose for that picture. But you don't have to have it if you don't want it. It can be brown or it can be a different color blue. But right now I'm just sort of following this idea of getting the same taupey color in there. Remember, if you do it on the right side, do it on the left side. So go ahead across the top on the other side and get that put in. So now you have your stripes. Anything that you paint over the lines will be easy for you to tweak in a little while when you get that first underpainting sort of put in. So check and make sure that all the inside of the boat is filled in with light taupey color.
Right here, is that taupe? On yours, see? Sure. Should I paint that first?
Yeah.
That needs to be blue. That needs to be blue.
All right. Now,
Oh, still, okay.
we need to get ready for the structure of the boat, how it's all tied together. That's going to be a very dark color. So if you'll wash off that taupe color, you certainly don't need the taupe for this. We need it pretty dark. Now I'm going to let you wash that brush out a little bit and tap it dry and put it on the side, and then pick up your smaller brush. We haven't used the smaller one yet, so we're going to start with that one now. This is a bright, and it's basically square, and so that helps us get into smaller places. If you'll just load your brush with black, and in this space paint the area that we're going to call the structure or the trim of the boat black. So everywhere on the outside, remember, this is the part of the boat that is around the edge, and it's on the inside of the boat, and it's black, and it's right on the very top. Like, that is the edge of the boat. So the inside is the taupey color, and then the edge is black. So remember, when you use a brush, you need to put it in the water, you need to soak up the paint, and then you need to spread the paint. If you use the whole width of the brush, you can get the exact size that you need for the trim. Then you can turn it on the toe side and get that next part, because you know the trim has to go all the way around. So look at your picture and notice where the black is going. It goes all the way to the middle right here, and then what do you have? The pole. So as soon as you get to that pole, you can stop. Then with the black, and you can add a little bit of the burnt sienna brown with it if you want it to be a brownish color, and you can go in and literally we're going to make this part of the boat, you can tell the structure and form. You can tell the line where it starts at the top, and then you've got all of those other pieces that crisscross. So you can actually go around them if you want to, or you can paint over them in a minute once you get ready to put the detail on the boat. Right now we're just going through, we're shaping up the form. We're using the black. I'm using the whole width of the brush. I'm going more than halfway down to the center at the bottom of the boat, so I'm just going to pick up the burnt sienna color, and that's going to go in the about the same area that the burnt sienna is on both sides of the boat. So that's the lighter brown color. So I'm going to keep going down with, oh, I'm sorry, I said brown, it's supposed to be blue. All right, so I'm going to put the brown in, and then I'll stick the blue in. Sorry about that. Okay, so I just went down, I finished it with brown, and now I'll touch it up with some blue on the top of it. So, picking up light blue, and I'm just going to streak it just a little bit. It almost looks like the paint is just, you know, being scraped off the boat just a little bit. Right on top of that brown color that you have on there. So I'm just going to pick up some of the light blue or dark blue, just scuff it right across the top. Scuff. Okay, now we're going to find the middle pole of the boat, and we're going to use the brown. So using the same brush, find your burnt sienna, your brown color. So, if you don't have any lines in here, so in other words, you don't know exactly where your pole is, I want to show you how you can figure it out. If you will go down about 2 inches from where your canvas is and put a dot right there, that is the top where the pole runs out of the canvas. It runs off the canvas right there. Now that dot is going to come and it is going to meet this dot. This dot is right in the middle of the boat, and that's where the pole is going to go. So literally to make it, it's really hard to draw with it up like this on the canvas. It may be a little bit easier for you to hold it. Load your brush with brown, and then literally take your painting like this, hold it, and get a position like with your fingers so that you're actually just going to draw a line and follow. If your line's there, you can copy it, but if it's not, just make it up. It's actually easier to do it if you're making it up, but anyway, if you're trying to copy one, it's a little bit harder. But either way, go from here to your dot with one line. Now that's too thin. We're going to make it thicker, but I want you to get it in the right place first. So find the place for it, and then after you find your place, you can start making it heavier. So go from dot to dot, from the top of your canvas down to the middle of your boat. And once you have it, now we're going to make it a little thicker, but not much. But if you will redraw the line again, notice this time I'm going a little slower, and I'm using more pressure, and the line is getting fatter. I'm going slower, and I'm pressing down more to get a fatter line. I'm going slower, and I'm pressing down to get a fatter line. It's really pretty thin, so don't worry about getting it any bigger than that, okay? Now, once you get that on, what I need you to do is go get a little bit of that tan color, and I want you to copycat, but this time I want your light color to lay right on top of your brown, and I want it to be over on your left side of the pole. So literally I'm just going to take, that's where the sun's hitting it, I'm going to take the light color, and I'm coming all the way down and making it lighter on the left side of the pole. Now, I know, wonderful. Now, we've got to make that sail, that fabric that's rolled up in this space next. So, I know that in your inspiration picture there are a lot of lines, but basically just sort of forget them. Don't worry about them. I'm going to show you how to sort of go through it. If you, with your brush, if you've got a little bit of the tan color on there, now I want you to go and put a little white. So tan, white, and a smidgen of black, so it's almost a gray. So black, white, and tan are the buff color. Now, this is how, if you pick up paint with your brush and it makes a big glob, you don't want to draw with a big glob, literally just take your brush like this and pat it down so that you're pushing all of the brush to the palette and you're not carrying all that stuff on your brush. Just push it out. Now you can draw a pretty good line. What I want you to do is go from here, which is about 3/4 up on the page. See how we're going up? This is halfway, so I'm going up a little bit more, and this line is going to go all the way across and get to the middle of your boat. You've got a little indentation in there where you're going. So literally with gray, you're going to fill in that space all the way across. It's white and black and it makes a gray look. All those lines that are in there, just don't worry about them for now. You'll be able to figure out how to wrap it. You're just going to wrap it and tie it up in a minute without following the other lines. So you're going to find that line, and then we're going to start putting the fabric. The fabric is going to widen up. It's going to be in the middle. If you'll notice in your inspiration picture, the fabric, you know how it's rolled up and it gets bunchy in the middle and it's thinner on the outside? Right. Well, that's sort of what's happening in here. So the bunchy part, I'm adding a little bit more tan and a little bit more brown. And the area that's in here is where I'm going to make it thicker. So this part is thicker. And it is bunchy and it is tied, so nothing about it looks neat and even. It's very uneven and it's all bunched up. So the next thing we want to do is literally put the strings around the sail so it looks like it is in a bundle. So use a mixture like half and half brown and black. Half and half. And then literally you're going to make, if you'll look at your picture, you can tell they're really just strings that tie it together. So you don't have to be, they all don't have to follow the lines, but if you want them to, if you will make whatever marks you put on there round like half a circle, like semicircle, it will go around the fabric. So I'm going to put one here just to show you how to get started. Go just like that. It's literally a mark that's like half a circle. So if you will put several of those
What she's doing is putting like bungee cords around there, so she says a half a circle.
then it will be all tied up.
You can look at your inspiration piece and you can tell where the lines are. But they don't really know.
of where they go.
And John, when you get finished that, if you could bring your picture back here so everybody can see it.
So once we tie and put the marks around it, we're gonna go in with that same brown and black, and we're gonna do scuff marks in here to make it look like that it has folds and creases in it and it's not flat. Now watch over here on this left-hand side of the big pole that's right in the middle of the boat. If you look at that one, see the pole?
Mm-hmm.
We want this blue line right here to go and be right beside it. So we're going to put the blue line inside the boat from here going up, and it goes right in from,
Is it dark blue?
it is dark blue.
Right here.
It could have some black in it even. It almost looks like it's a pole that's holding up the sail, but I don't know for sure. But it goes from inside the boat up to the sail. Now, you do have more attachments that are on the boat. The one right here on the corner, you've got a space that comes from right outside the boat that goes inside the boat. It almost looks like it goes all the way to the corner and fills up that space, but it does go inside the boat. So use dark blue and then use a little black to make sure it's dark enough. We're going right inside the area of the boat with, it's almost like a cylinder shape or a rectangle, but it goes right inside that space. Now, the rest of the lines that you see coming right out of the boat, these just come out of the front portion, and they're going to be the tan color. So if you will take the black off your brush and get the tan, the buff color, there are going to be two that cross. One's in the front and one's behind this structure right here. That's the most important thing for you to note. Look at your piece and you'll say that one goes in the front and one goes in the back. So, easy way, the one in the back is the one on the bottom. So take your brush and draw a line that goes underneath and over to the part of the black structure that's in the middle of the boat. Yes, they do. If you'll look at the one that's on the top, it goes all the way in front of the black center. So you're going to start here, you're going to draw it this way, and then cross over the one that you just did. See how it crosses over? It almost makes like an X. So this one comes down and crosses over the one that's up underneath it. So it makes like a Y. Okay, the thing that's left now that we don't have drawn in would be the strings that are on the front of the boat, and then the strings that are hanging down from the other poles. So we're not going to do those right now. We're going to go back and just refine what we have, and then we'll do the strings last. The easiest way for you to think about this as if you think about painting layers on top of each other and building, It's a great way for you to think about adding a new dimension to your painting that you don't have. So if you have a place that looks flat and you don't want it to, then I'll show you how to change it. For instance, if you look at this sky, if you feel like when you look at it that it is flat, if you don't have enough depth in there, it is really fun to take your brush, load new paint, because this is dry. For instance, if you load white on your brush now, and it won't mix in with any color, and you can get a bright cloud. You can't get that if it's wet. Now, if you don't want to blend, then this is the way to do it. Now you're going to start adding new color on top of dry color. When you're blending it, you can't do that when it's wet on wet. But you have to figure out how much of a cloud you want. If you want it like this, where you scuff it and have it all the way across and you have a white cloud, then you can certainly do it now. But you can also add color into it and change it. And if you want it to look like it's stormier, then you can change the strokes. Anytime you are going side to side with your brush strokes, then it looks like it's laying flat. But if you change and go a little bit more on a diagonal, it gives it more of a feel of it being more the word I'm looking for, more stormy. So you have to figure out what it is that you want your sky to have. And because now you know exactly where your lines are, you can paint and play up there a little bit more, because you're not going to be worried about covering lines. Now, if you love your sky and you don't want to do anything to it, please don't. You don't have to do anything. So you just get to you make a decision about what you feel looks good for your sky.
I hear you over there.
Now you're going to move down, and the water's the same way. Because a while ago you were painting on you were a little skittish about putting the color on there because you were scared you were going to cover up something. Well, now you know where the color goes, and so now you can just slide your brush across a little freer and have a little bit more paint on it. You can go right around because you've got the underpainting, you could literally go right around the poles or the lines, and you don't have to worry about going right up to the edge. Just stay away from it just a little bit. So now I put a little bit more concentration of the color in there, and it really adds depth and makes your water look like it is really far away, or that's the deep water. Now we can go in and we can add a few more wavy things in here. So if you get the cerulean blue, that's the color this is the cerulean, that's the lighter blue. If you go in there and mix that with white and come across, I just added cerulean first, and now I'm putting white right on top of it. See how much paint I'm painting with? I'm adding a lot of paint. When we painted earlier, we didn't add as much. We made more of a wash. But now if I want it to look a little more wavy or have more motion in it, you can definitely do that with the cerulean, but you need to make sure that you're mixing enough white with it that it flows. This is the white with the cerulean. That's the light blue. That's right. So now you can put it can be as wavy as you want. It can have as much motion in it as you want. But if you love your water and you don't need to add anything, you certainly don't have to. It's just a way for you to think about finishing up your picture if you needed more drama. If it was boring, if it didn't have quite enough stuff going on, you can certainly add that now. Yep, you can go scuffy.
I'm gonna make
You can
my
go.
next hat scuffy.
All right, that's interesting. Now, you can do the same thing for texture on your boat. This is the cerulean. If you want to go in there and really play up the fact that the boat is on the sand and it's probably being faded out by the sun, or it's getting older and older, literally you can take the blue that you have, wet that area just a little bit, and then take the brown and scuff right over the top. I picked up a smidgen of brown on my brush and I just started laying it on top of the blue. So it's not even and clean, it's scuffy feeling. You just scuff across the color that's already on there. You can do the opposite with the brown. You can go in with brown on your brush and you can scuff it. You can put the blue on the brown or vice versa, as long as you're just taking the two different colors and putting them on top of each other. You're not doing it with a lot of paint. It's a very small amount of paint, a very small amount. And you can continually change, going from tans to browns to blues, in such a way, the more you play with it, the scuffier it's going to get. The older, the more worn out it's going to get. So you just decide how much of that you want. Make sure that the inside of your boat has a little bit of a shadow in the corner. We did not do that a while ago. These are some of the things that I really want you to do. In this corner right here on the back of the boat, where that pole is coming out of it, right here in the corner is where you need to put a shadow. So I have blue and black on my brush, and I just went inside that space just a little bit. I had a very, very little bit on my brush. And do you see how I'm just scuffing the brush right across the tan? I don't want it to stay a bright tan, okay? I want the tan to get darker and darker right here inside the boat, okay? Inside the boat. I have a little blue on my brush and a little black. And I'm going across the tan, and I'm making it look like it has a shadow on the inside of the boat. Now it's not bright tan anymore. I'm doing the same thing where this line is, where the trim is on the boat. I don't want it to be bright and new looking, unless you do. It can be whatever you want. But I'm going to come in and I'm going to add just a few scuff marks to it so it doesn't feel new. A little brown, a little black, just scuffed right on the top. Now, where you've got these tan posts sticking out where they crossed over a while ago, we certainly can't leave them like that because they're the only thing on the whole canvas. It's just one shade, and we don't want that. But we do need to change over and get rid of the big brush. So if you have all the scuffing done that you want on your boat, and say even a little bit here on the sand, see how I just went and scuffed it right across? I'm through with the big brush, so I'm going to go get my smaller brush. We're going to do the detail on this pole, and then we're going to put our lines in, okay? And then everything else that you do will be just individual to your picture. So, if you'll put your brush in the water, the big one, and wash it out, and get it out of the water, and then go for the smaller flat brush. Then we're going to draw shadows on the poles and lines on the boat. I'm picking up brown and black. Brown and black. If you'll look, the pole, it almost has a line drawn on it that is a shadow. Anytime you have something that is, say my arm, if you look at it, see how the light is coming in and hitting right here on the arm? Well, see how down here there's no light? So it's darker. So that's what happens to this pole right here. I'm going to come up underneath the bottom section, and I'm literally drawing a shadow line underneath that pole. You don't have to necessarily just draw a straight line, but it can be a broken line or a little, choppy line. It doesn't have to be straight. But we do want it to be underneath both poles so that they feel like that the light's on the top and the shadow's up underneath. And that'll take care of the shadow on that. The same thing's going to happen on your fabric. You need to come up underneath. I've still got the black and the brown on my brush. I'm going to come up underneath the sail where it is folded, and the bottom is going to have a little bit of a shadow up underneath it. So that means the sunlight's hitting it on the top and the shadow is up underneath the cloth. So it's just a little bit of the paint just scuffed, just barely tucked in right up underneath the bottom. And it does go all the way out to the end. So go ahead and take and make sure that your line goes all the way out, all the way across the pole. So it's the fabric and the pole too. Dip your brush in the water, go back and get brown and black again. Now you've got a little, I call them hoo-haws if I don't know what they are, a little string that's hanging right down from the boat. See right here on the end? All I want you to do is to wrap a string around so that you have something hanging down. It's almost like a tie that's not tied to anything, okay? It's just hanging. But flat brush, bright brush, it is brown and black mixed together. Put it in the brown and the black paint and make sure that when you go get it that you just flatten out the brush like this in brown and black. It's a very, very fluid mixture, brown and black. Then you're going to draw lines that go from the pole that's in the middle to the wooden frame that's in the front. So literally you're going to go from here up, and if you've got a line you can follow it. If you don't, you just make your own. But you're going, if you look at the space where you are in the boat, you're going from that black wooden stern that's in the middle, you're going all the way up to the pole. The pole has a little wheelie, a little pulley that's right here that it's attached to. So if you want to put a little pulley up there, you can, or you can pretend like it's on further up if you don't want to put it. Now that space actually has two lines, so we're going to actually put that double line that we looked at. It's connected at the same place, so you're just going to go from here. There's just a little bit of space in between the two lines. You're going right up towards the top. All right, go into the water, then your paint again, and we've got one more set of lines that literally go from the same place down to this pole. Look at your inspiration piece and you can tell the lines go from here to here, okay? You've got two little skinny lines that are side by side, so just copycat and go in. Two lines side by side right in front of that blue pole-ish place. You can see where that is. And then basically you have your painting. There are all kind of fun things that you can do with the palette knife. So I'm going to show you one or two just to finish the picture. And then you can decide you don't have to use it, but it will be a way for you to show you how texture can be added with a palette knife. I'm going to take the blue and I'm gonna put it on my palette. I'm gonna pick it up with my palette knife, and literally I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna scrape so it has a look of being thick. I'm gonna mix that. So now I have white and buff mixed together. And literally in this space, I want to build up the sand so it feels like it's coming almost in front of the boat. So it looks like it's piled up. See how I just lay it on? You just spread it like you were icing a cake with the palette knife. Just spread it. And you get a real fun part of the texture that's just raised up, and it feels fun to look at. You don't have to put much, but you can put just a little bit to show that the sand is a pile. Which one? Tan. Okay, there you go. Pick up a little bit of the tan and spread it right across the sand, and you'll have